welcome back to our channel. Today I'm gonna tell y'all my story. It's gonna get a little personal. My childhood was pretty normal. Did t-ball, softball. I was a pretty energetic kid, as I remember, until I got to about 3rd grade. Something happened. It was around this time of the year. I was going into my 3rd grade year, and I was at my grandparents' house because that's where we would stay during the week. I remember waking up to someone touching me. Laid there, still as I could be, peeked as little as I could through my eyes and saw who it was. It was my grandpa's friend. I couldn't believe what happened. This pretty much continued on almost at least twice a week. And then once school started, he would come over because his wife was my grandpa's caregiver person. But he would come over with her because my grandparents and them were friends. He would always, every single time we passed by him, he would always slap my butt every single time. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, he's a grown-up, why is he slapping my butt? I'm a kid. I was sitting on the couch at my grandma's house watching TV, and I remember him reaching up my skirt, forced his hand over under the shorts, and touched me in my private area. It was about January time before I turned 9. I remember being woken up by feeling pressure on top of me. I didn't know at the time what was going on. I was a kid, of course. He had his pants down, and he was about to stick his penis in an area where it shouldn't go with a child. The only reason he didn't fully do it was because he was put in charge of us to babysit us. When my grandparents were at the doctor, my grandparents had just gotten home. That was our first incident. The second incident was later on that month. I was there. It was a weekend, and he got on top of me again, and then this time forced himself. I lay there still as I could be. I didn't want to get hurt. I was scared. A couple weeks later, well, not even a couple weeks later, a couple days later, I started my period. Flash forward to May time. He grabs me as I'm passing by him to go to the kitchen of my grandma's house, and he tells me, "You better not tell anybody or I'm gonna kill you and your siblings." I look at him terrified. For a year, I was laying down in my grandparents' house, in my grandparents' room, and my grandpa was laying right next to him. I was asleep. I felt him reach under the blanket and start touching me. I was wearing a dress, and I peeked through my eyes and just looked at my grandpa. My grandpa was blind, so he couldn't see anything that was going on. And this man continued to talk to my grandpa while he was touching me. I pretty much just laid there, still as can be. I ended up telling my older brother. My brother wanted to kill him. So flash forward to my 6th grade year. I would ride the bus home every now and then with my mom, when I knew my mom was going to be at work or was going to be late at work or something. Well, that day I forgot that my older brother had a game, so I went home on the bus, and then I get home and there's no one there. My grandparents weren't there, my mom wasn't there, my siblings weren't there, so I was like, oh, let me call my mom. So I called my mom, and I was like, oh, where are y'all? And she's like, oh, we're going to JC's game. I told you, I was like, oh, I forgot, I'll just stay here at grandma's. I'll just wait for grandma to get here and then I'll just stay here till you get home. So the phone rings after hanging up with mom. And I was like, oh, maybe it's grandma, like maybe mom called to her. No, it was that man. And instead of asking where's your grandma, grandpa and grandma, let me talk to them, he says, who's with you? I'm like, that's none of your business. I hung up. And then he calls again. He's like, where's your little brother? And I was like, why? He's like, because I want to have some fun. I just hung up. So he kept calling and calling. So I grabbed the phone and I called my mom. And I'm like, Mom, so-and-so's looking for Johnny. And I need to tell you something. So on the way to my brother's game, I told my mom. And she didn't know what to say. Flash forward to Thanksgiving of that year. We told my dad. He was shocked. Wanted to kill the man. We had to stop him from doing it. Flash forward to when they actually gave him a plea deal and stuff. Pretty much he pled and only got a few years in prison. And in that process of all this happening, my grandpa got really sick. So he was in hospice for a few weeks. And I was standing by my grandpa's bed talking to him, trying to comfort him. And I touched my grandpa's chest and he jumped 3 times, clenched his teeth, and I heard him breathe his last breath. That death was pretty impactful on me for the fact we pretty much spent almost every single day after school at my grandparents' house. He pretty much helped my parents raise us. He was like my other dad. At this moment in time, me and my sister were on a traveling softball team. So after like all this stuff happened with my grandpa and stuff, my grandma started coming with us to our games and stuff just so we wouldn't have her alone in the house by herself. So flash forward to the following January. My cousin was having the equivalent of a Sweet 16, but in my culture, it's called quinceañera, and my grandma wasn't gonna come with us. My sister took my grandma over there. My grandma really didn't want to go. She really wanted to come to the dance with us. And I remember that day before we went to the quinceañera, and I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I can't wait next year for grandma to be able to do this with me. We'll be getting ready for my quinceañera. Little did we know the worst thing in all of our family's lives was going to happen that night. My dad kept calling and calling and calling me, but in the dance hall that we were at, I didn't have very much service. So he called my mom's sister's phone, and my aunt pretty much ran to me. She's like, your dad sounds like he needs to tell you something very important. Like, try to get the phone to your mom. And my mom was taking pictures. She answered the phone, and all I hear is my mom say, what? What? And I look at her like, what's going on? And then she hangs up the phone, and they ask her, like, what's going on? And then she says that my grandma passed away. I was in shock. I was standing next to my mom, and I just lost all control of my body. I just fell to the floor. Know what to do. None of us expected this. This wasn't even something that we even thought was gonna happen. So she was super healthy. She rarely was ever sick of having a heart attack. It was only 9 months later. She, like I said about my grandpa, she pretty much was my other mom. I was always there. She taught me how to make my first food. She taught me how to actually be a lady, how to actually treat yourself and respect yourself, I started dating my second boyfriend. We only met because one of my friends had a water slide party and I went, and that's the only reason we met. So we didn't really know each other, but it was weird. So we were dating and stuff, and it was, and like, of course, just like I thought about the last one, I was like, oh, I'm gonna marry him. I love him. He's the best thing that ever happened to me. So I'm not gonna say that he pressured me into it, because it takes two to tango. But then we had sex. It was around his birthday time, and of course I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I just hope my parents don't find out. My parents already know about this and stuff, so Mom and Dad, if you're watching, you know. So like this happened and stuff, and of course, just like that last one, he ended up cheating on me too. Of course, I was hurt because I lost my virginity to him. I thought he was the only one I was going to be with forever and stuff. So like the springtime of my sophomore year, I started dating this guy. I didn't say it in the previously, but I had transferred schools after. I already had planned on transferring schools before I even dated my first boyfriend. So I ended up transferring schools to the next town over. That was our rival school. So I ended up dating somebody else in the school next to that school, the next town over from that one. And of course, I didn't go to the same school as him and stuff. Like the last boyfriend, I thought the same thing. So he was older than me. Well, he ended up cheating on me with his ex-girlfriend and stuff, but I'm not gonna get into that. But while I was dating him and stuff, I ended up meeting my now best friend. The whole reason we even became friends was because she was the only person that told me that she saw him with his ex-girlfriend, and they weren't just being friends. They were being more than a little friendly. So, of course, his ex-girlfriend didn't like me because of that. And then, so my now best friend ended up asking me at that time, a few months later, like, hey, is it okay if I date him? I know he's your ex-boyfriend and stuff, but I just want to know if it's okay with you because you're my friend. And I was like, yeah, like, I don't care. So they started dating and stuff. So we actually became best friends because his ex-girlfriend hated not just me, but her. And she pretty much was making my best friend's life hell and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm here for you, like, if you need anything and stuff. I had surgery and stuff, and then it was getting my birthday, like in February. So my brother was like, hey, there's a party, let's go to the party. And I'm not gonna bash my brother about this and stuff. Like, it had happened. Like, I'm over it happened. It was me, my brother, and two of my friends. So I had surgery. Like, I hadn't drank, I hadn't done anything since at this point, from the time I had surgery till then. So of course, I wasn't gonna be I wasn't gonna take my alcohol very well either way. So I remember we were drinking a Four Loko. Worst idea ever. Like, I'm never, ever, ever touching that ever again. So I was drinking a Four Loko, and I hadn't even gotten through a quarter of the can. I was like, I'm already buzzed. And then I drank half the can. I was like, okay, I'm really buzzed. And then I took the can from my friend. I was like, no, I'm gonna finish it. And I was drunk. So then my friend was getting a mixed drink from one of her friends, and I was like, oh, like I want one too. So I got a mixed drink, and I remember having to pee after we got the drink, and I was like, I need to go pee. Like I need to pee bad. So we went and peed, and then I was like, okay, like I really don't feel good. So she sat me down on a chair, and all I remember is wind hitting me in my face, and I passed out, and I just started puking. Just puking. Mind you, the party hadn't really actually started at this point either. But like I said, I was just puking. And I was like, oh my god, like, I feel terrible. So that happened and stuff. And it was a hot mess. But my brother let his friends put me in a little wagon thing and dragged me around the whole party in it. And then he put me in the truck, let people smoke in the truck with me, passed out in it with puke all over myself, and then didn't leave the party until I don't even know what time. It was late. So we get home, and all I remember is getting home, taking off all my clothes because I smelled like puke, and just passing out. I didn't remember anything that happened. All I remember is coming in and out, and seeing people in the truck, and then the truck moving, and then me being home. That's all I remember. Well, next thing I knew in the morning, that there was all these pictures of where I was passed out and stuff. And I was like, what the hell? So that kind of made me realize, hey, like, I'm not about this scene anymore. Like I used to, like, I'm not about this anymore. So I pretty much stopped partying. I stopped doing everything I was doing at that time. And then I would say the next month or so, I met the guy I dated before I married Travis. Me and him dated from March of that year till September of 2014. So we dated for almost 2 years. We dated for like a year and a half or so. I honestly thought that we were gonna last, but I was only his only like actual girlfriend. He hadn't really had any actual girlfriends at that time. So we pretty much broke up in September after I started college. And I was devastated. I was like he doesn't want to be with me anymore. So like around November, I remember asking like, hey, like, are we getting back together? Like, I want to be together. And he's like, no, like, I found somebody else. But at this whole time, he was still talking to me like if we're getting back together. And he pretty much was like, no, I met somebody else. And I was like, okay. So then a couple weeks later, it was Black Friday time, and I was working at Aeropostale. And I pretty much carpooled with my friends, but they were working at Bath and Body, and they had to stay later than I did. So I was like, oh, like, I'm screwed. So I had met Travis and stuff, and I'll get into later how we met. But I was texting him, and I was like, it sucks. I have to wait till my friends get out of work, and they're probably not getting out of work till like 5 in the morning to have to stay here till 5. And mind you, it was like around 11 midnight or so. And he's like, I can be there like 15 minutes. And I was like, okay. So like I had never met Travis in person or anything. So I texted my friends, I was like, hey, if I don't text you back in 5 minutes, I'm dead. So Travis gets there in 10 minutes and pulls up in this blacked out Cadillac. And like waves to the window, but I couldn't really see into the car. All I could see was the hand moving. And like I crept over and I was like, I don't know about this. Like, I don't know. And he's like, hey, it's me. And I was like, in the Cadillac? He's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. So I get in, and he was driving out this blacked out Cadillac that made him seem very, I don't know how to actually say that. I don't know, but he seemed like a lot more manlier, I guess. But when I got into the car, he was listening to Taylor Swift. And I was like, oh, okay, I like this song. We got there to his apartment, and we were just there talking and stuff, and watching Pitch Perfect. And I remember him asking me, he's like, so do you want to sleep on the bed or do you want to sleep on the couch? And I was expecting like both of us to sleep in the same area. And I was like, no, like I'll sleep on the couch, like this is my apartment, I'm not gonna take the bed. So he was like, okay, alright. He goes and lays down on his bed and like leaves me there in the room, and I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, cool. So then the next day he drops me off back in my dorm. And then we kind of stopped talking for a while. Because then he left on leave to go visit his family not too long after. And then a couple weeks later I went home for Christmas break. So after New Year's, Travis ended up texting me. And he's like, hey, let's hang out. And I was like, like I'm not in Abilene, so I was like, it's gonna have to wait till I get back. And he's like, oh, where are you? And I was like, oh, with my family, like down by South Padre. So then a couple weeks later, after I got back to Abilene, so we started hanging out again. And then around Valentine's Day and stuff, we ended up going like on a date that wasn't a date, but that was a date, if that makes sense. I'm gonna go see 50 Shades of Grey, but like we were only friends at this point. We weren't dating, like we weren't boyfriend or girlfriend or anything. So we went to go see 50 Shades of Grey, and we were holding hands in the movie theater. So I was like, I wonder where we are. So my birthday is a few days after Valentine's Day. So he took me to get my nails done. He bought me a cake. He took me out to eat for my birthday. And I was like, no guy's ever done this for me. Like, okay. And this is a little TMI, but around that time too, I was on my period. Like I had just started my period, and I was like, oh crap, like I don't have any money to go get anything. Like I'm gonna have to text my dad to give me money. So I was texting him. I was like, hey, like I might not come over. Like I'm on my period and stuff. And he's like, I don't care. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I have to go to Walmart to get stuff. And he's like, I'll take you to go get some. So he takes me, and doesn't just take me to get stuff. He takes me and buys it for me. And I was like, oh, okay. So then later that night on my birthday, my friend Kristen and one of my best friends, Lindsay, they took me out to eat for my birthday. And we went to Chili's and stuff, and I was so excited that morning I woke up because it had just started snowing here in town. And I was like, oh my god, but I had never really seen snow. So I was like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever. So that night it was still kind of icy and snowing. So we're driving back to our dorm. And I text Travis and I was like, so what are we? He's like, I don't know, what do you want to be? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, what do you want to be? He's like, I want to be your boyfriend. And I was like, so then you're my boyfriend, question mark? And he's like, yes. So that's pretty much how we actually started dating. And then, like, I was like, oh, like, this guy's really nice, like, he treats me very well, like, he's not playing any kid games with me. So, flash forward to around spring break. I went home for spring break to go help my mom plan my sister's Sweet 16, and he stayed there. He stayed here in town, and then I needed a ride back to Abilene. So I told him, I was like, hey, like, would you mind if you met us halfway in San Antonio? And he was like, no, I wouldn't mind. So he came and met my mom and stuff. And I was like, huh. So he is really nice, and he's nice enough, even though we just started dating, like, he's nice enough to drive over here and get me. So then I asked him, and I was like, hey, do you want to be my date for my sister's 16? And he's like, yeah, sure. So we had been dating for like a month, and he came down, met all of my family. So I needed to find somewhere to live, like an apartment or somewhere, because I was gonna take a summer class. So I was like crap. So around Easter time, we went to go visit my aunt in New Mexico, and my uncle was also in the military, so him and Travis had that in common. So while we were there, my dad asked me, and he's like, so what do you do with your college class? And I was like, I don't know, I need to find somewhere to live. He's like, why don't you just move in with Travis? But me and Travis at this point already talked about it, but we weren't like, I don't know, like, what if my parents aren't okay with it? So my dad brought it up himself, so I was like, oh, okay, like, he's fine with me doing that. So we ended up moving in together in his apartment, and then we talked about it. We're like, this apartment's a little too small since you have roommates, like, maybe we should try to find a house to rent. So we found a house to rent and stuff, and then we moved in together, like, officially moved in together at the end of that summer, or no, a few months later actually. So then flash forward to, we already talked about getting engaged and stuff, and I knew we were going to get engaged, I just didn't know when. So I told him, I was like, well, you're on a trip, I'm going to go visit my family, and maybe look at some wedding dresses. I myself didn't think I was going to get a wedding dress before I actually got the ring. But I ended up finding my wedding dress before I found the ring. So then he's like, oh crap, like, I need to do it then soon. So he pretty much came back from his trip, and I had just come out of work from American Eagle, and I was exhausted. Like, I was already mad because I had to deal with customers. I was already mad, and I was hungry. And I'm not a very happy person when I'm hungry. So he had me go on a scavenger hunt all throughout the house, and I hate scavenger hunts. So I was like, this guy's asking for it. And we already had gone in Clay. So he was doing all these little scavenger hunts. He look under where Clay goes and hides. And I was like, great, the couch. And he's like, go to this, and go to this. And I was like, I'm just so frustrated with this already. And he's like, go where we hide our coats. Where we put our coats away. And I'm like, damn it, why didn't he just tell me? Like, this is the front of the freaking house. I was already in the front of the freaking house. So I go back to the living room, and I look in the closet, and the first thing I feel in the jacket pocket was a box for a ring. I was like, I know what you're doing. I was like, yes. So he was like, well, let me ask. He's like, do you want to? And I was like, yes, I already told you yes. So that's how. So I just thought that was funny. So then a few months, so then we're living there, I was like, I really don't like this house. Like, it's small and stuff. Like, it's not a really good, like, marriage home. So we started looking at houses, and we found our house where we live in now. Yeah, it was, I think that was my favorite wedding that we had, because it was simple, The only down thing that happened was my hair and makeup. Like, I paid so much for it, and I could have done a better job at home. But it was amazing. Like, I married my best friend. So then he deployed and stuff, and I was like I was so adjusted to living away from my parents in the first place. But like living at home, in a house by myself with 3 dogs, because we already had Ellie too. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm freaking out. So I texted him. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go live with my parents for a few months. Like, I'm freaking out. And at this time, when all this was happening, was when like the whole clown things were happening too, like all the clown scares. So I was like I'm scared. Like, no, like what if there's a clown? Because there was a clown sighting here in town at one point, and I was like, what if like there's a clown? He's like, I have a clown phobia. Like, no, like I can't do. Like, I'll freak out. He's like, you know how to use the gun. Like, you have 3 pit bulls. Like, you'll be okay. So I was like, no, I'm gonna go stay with my family. So I went down, stayed with my family for a little bit, came back up, and then he ended up coming home from deployment not long after. But on that process, I was finding another job because American Eagle wasn't giving me very much hours. So I got another job, and I got hired at a store called Christopher & Banks as an assistant manager. So all that happened and stuff. So when he came back, a couple weeks later, we went to go have another wedding reception ceremony thing in Iowa that his family was throwing for us. So that happened. We were grateful for all the gifts we got. So we came back, and then I missed my period again. I told him, I was like I missed my period. Like, I think I'm pregnant. So we waited a couple more days to check, and then I started like 2 weeks later. 2 weeks after my actual start date. And I was like, no, like I started, so I'm not pregnant. So I was a little bummed out, because at that moment in time, I was actually wanting to have a baby. So we talked about it and stuff, and we agreed, we're like, we can try, but if we can try this month. If it happens, it happens. Like, we can start trying. So it so happened, I bought the ovulation kits. The first few that I took, I was ovulating. Well, the first few tries we did, I guess I must have gotten pregnant right then and there with Graham. But in August, my parents were having our actual big wedding. So we told my parents I did that same day or like the day after or something, and it still happened before we told my parents. I was in the kitchen with my mom, me and Travis were, and my mom was like, so when y'all gonna give me a grandbaby? And I was like, oh, I don't know, but I already knew I was pregnant. So I sent Travis to go get the box from the car. And I was like, I have a present for y'all doing so much for us and stuff. For paying for all the wedding. Like, y'all didn't have to, but y'all did. And so it was a pregnancy test that had the positive on it, and then a onesie that said, awesome like my grandpa, and I don't remember what the other one said. Something about my grandma. Or my grandma loves me or something like that. But it was the cutest thing ever. But because my dad didn't get it at first, and my mom looked at it, she's like, oh my god, really? And I was like, yes. And they started crying because it's the first grandbaby. And it was the best thing ever. But of course, we wanted to keep it a secret for a little bit longer until we actually went to the doctor and got the positive pregnancy test, the actual sonogram and stuff, and actually saw the heartbeat. But yeah, that happened and stuff, and then I went through my pregnancy with Graham, and here we are today, doing YouTube, having a 5-month-old baby, and 2 amazing dogs. Oh, I didn't get into the whole thing with Ellie. I'll get into that with my furry friend tag video, but because that's a whole nother story to do. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for our next video.